Yes, thank you for having me here. It's an honor to be in front of you, and thank you for attending. I would like to share with you today some of my experience and insights about how to go from an ID to a startup, and to reveal some of the secret sauce that startups seem to have over the larger corporates. Why is it that I am standing here in front of you? When I was 16 years old, I was fortunate to be a co-founder of the Dutch website Marktplaats.nl, which is a C2C classifieds platform where people can buy and sell second-hand and new items amongst each other. Now, Marktplaats in the Netherlands started in '99 already and became a huge success. It became the single most visited website of the Netherlands and basically got a monopoly in this market. It is still there today, still in the top 10 brands of the Netherlands, right in between Hellenic and Nationale Nederlanden, and has been an example in the Dutch startup scene. After Marktplaats, and we sold Marktplaats to eBay in 2004. Actually, I stayed with the company for another 12 years, expanding the same type of business to 27 other markets. And then after Marktplaats, my next startup was as a co-founder in the startup, the long-term stock exchange in San Francisco, which was founded by Eric Ries, the author of the book The Lean Startup, which I will refer to later in my presentation. This is a tool for startup founders actually to manage their shareholder register, and is a step before the big plan of this startup, a new stock exchange in the US that will go live later this year. Now, after I completed this project, I was approached by Orange Grove here in Athens, as you heard before from the ambassador, the startup incubator that was set up here in the city by the Netherlands embassy. Originally, I arrived here as a jury member for their quarterly startup competition, but I got really excited about what they're trying to achieve here and the passion and hard effort that they put into it. And they fortunately invited me to join as an entrepreneur in residence. And so since September 2016, I've been coming to Athens a week per month to work with the teams at Orange Grove to really crack those first steps of their businesses. And being longer here in the Greek market, I started to learn a thing or two about your economy, your market, and got really excited actually about the opportunities that are ahead in the coming years. And one thing led to another, and with the support of Orange Grove, I decided that my next venture would also be here in Greece, and I started Vendora, which is very similar to Marktplaats in the Netherlands, a marketplace for consumers where people can buy and sell products from each other, literally from anything, your used car, to people producing and selling their olive oil through our website. But that's enough about me. I would like to dig a little bit into startups and what we have learned over the last good 2 decades in the startup world. It all started with in the 90s with a big .com bubble in the US, and one of the companies that nowadays is iconic for that time is this one, Pets.com. Pets.com was an online shop where you could order your pet supplies and pet food for it to be delivered to your home, because pets can't drive, was their slogan. Now, Pets.com had a great idea, and they wrote a detailed business plan. They raised a lot of money from investors. Then they set up a nationwide distribution channel with warehouses throughout the country, launched their website. They hired a well-known marketing firm to design this mascot for them, run it as an ad during the Super Bowl, that is most expensive but also most watched commercial block in the US, only to find out that when they launched, after a first year, they had sold only $600,000 of products. Now, $600,000 may sound a lot, but they spent almost $12 million on marketing to achieve that. They went to the stock market in February 2000 and went bust in November 2000. $300 million was lost down the drain. And we heard the ambassador referring to affordable loss earlier this morning. This loss wasn't affordable. They did it fast, that was good, but how could we have learned this same lesson for a lot less money?
Yeah, but that was a good failure. It's a good story now that everybody can tell. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And so looking at Pets.com as an example, I think we can conclude that most startups actually don't fail because they couldn't build the product. Pets.com could set up their entire distribution channel, could do their marketing, everything, but they couldn't find enough customers before running out of resources. And so it is very important that we can be sure that we will find these paying customers, that we have a working business model before we spend 300 million on marketing and setting up the rest of the organization. So the question that we should answer is not, can it be built, but should it be built? Now, like I said, so Pets.com, they followed quite a traditional approach, which you often refer to as waterfall planning, which goes through different stages, from requirements to design to implementation, verification, and then maintenance. And only then, when the product is all finished, we put it into the markets and in the hands of our customers. And the problem is that a lot of time is being consumed in this process, and a lot of financial resources. But it gets in the way of learning about the market and about our customers. So we don't actually learn whether all this, what we are building, should be built in the first place. Now, a couple of years later, there was a small startup in Silicon Valley called IMVU that approached this in the same way. They raised 5 million, they spent 6 months to build their product, they made a website, ran a marketing campaign over it, and 2 months later they evaluated to conclude that not a single visitor to their website downloaded the software they had built. It was considered a failure, and the CEO, so the company went bust. The CEO said, unfortunately we failed, but at least we learned a lot. And then the CTO of that company got frustrated and said, yeah, but then let's really identify actually what we learned and try to find out if there would be a quicker way to learn the same. And what they concluded in this retrospective is that the only thing what they really learned is that the web page they made and the marketing campaign they run apparently wasn't compelling enough for people to even try downloading the software. How could they have learned the same? They could have just made this website, and if somebody would click on download, you would get 404 not found. It wouldn't have mattered because nobody clicked the download button anyway. They spent 1 day making this website. They spent 6 months writing the software that nobody downloaded. Had they done it the other way around, they would never have written the software. Or maybe they would have changed this page until somebody would actually click download. So this was the birth of the vision and later the book, The Lean Startup, by Eric Ries, who was the CTO of IMVU at the time and now the co-founder of the Long-Term Stock Exchange. To make this really concrete, here's an example of Buffer that applies this almost by the book. Like, they reversed the process. When Buffer had the idea to start their company, they really wanted to know whether people were willing to pay for this. So their first step was making that website, not the product. They just put up this first page that said, hey, here is what we promise you. You can tweet more consistently using our product. If you're interested in that, you can click here to see our plans and pricing. Now, they made their error page a bit nicer than a 404 not found. They said, like, whenever you click that button, they said, oops, you've caught up with us, like, we're not quite ready yet. But if you are interested to be one of the test users and have, be the first one to have access, then leave your email address here. This gave them a list of people they could reach out to learn about which product they should build, how the product should look like, and whether there is an interest in it at all. Then a couple of weeks later, they expanded this test and put a page in between with 3 different price tiers of their product. Really to learn what would people click at, or do they abandon the website immediately if they see that this is a paid product. And when they click at it, which package would they go for? So this way they can test their pricing strategy even before building their product. And more importantly, it gives them already real data and real customer feedback that also helps them to convince angel investors to put in the first money to actually go and build this product. And this is nothing new. This is an example from 1975, the magazine Popular Electronics, where you see the first personal microcomputer being advertised, the Altair 8800. When this appeared, there was a student from Harvard that quickly reached out to these guys because he said, I have the programming language that you need to make this a success. They had a meeting. After the meeting, he went out and he had closed the deal. And he was slightly in panic because he didn't have the programming language he sold. He was just curious whether there would be interest. And if there was, he was going to build the software. Now, the panic was misplaced. He didn't know that because he wasn't aware that the box you see here, the computer you see on this magazine, isn't real either. It's an empty box with just a few LED lights in it. Altair was actually doing the same. They wanted to know whether there was enough demand at this price point in the market before they were going to invest the money to build the product. They knew they could build it. They weren't sure whether the market demand was right. Altair was successful, but no longer exists. But that guy from Harvard that dropped out was Bill Gates, and this was the start of Microsoft. Another interesting and more recent example from a couple of years ago, just before the whole AI wave started, is Omobi. They did what today is rather common, maybe making a photo. You could make a photo of a product with your mobile phone, and it would, in just a few seconds' time, tell you what's on that photo. Like you see on the example, the tomato ketchup, make a photo from, and you see the label underneath it. Back then, this was magic. We didn't have AI yet that could do this in a few seconds on a mobile phone. How did they do it? They came up with a way to overcome this R&D challenge. So building the algorithm for them would take a lot of research and development. They would need a lot of data of photos with the labels to train this artificial intelligence to learn, to recognize these things. And so that would require a large team and a large investment. So they were looking for a way how they could overcome that and get started and make sure they could find customers, find data, and eventually find the investment to then actually start building the product. And they did that by using artificial intelligence. Also known in the market as Amazon Mechanical Turk. So what happens, every time you make a photo, this is actually being sent to a small army of people around the world that sit behind their computer and will immediately enter the answer. When they get two answers the same, this is being fed back to the phone. And so as a customer, you get the value that this app promises, only it is done in a manual way for now. The great thing is that Omobi could already sell their technology to their customers, other companies that want to use image recognition. And by every time letting somebody do this manually, they were creating a data set that they needed to train the artificial intelligence. Now, when they had their customers, they were able to convince investors to put in the money to finance the research and development and actually build the technology behind it. At Marktplaats, we were very fanatic with this methodology, the lean startup methodology as well, and really try to keep things lean and mean and move very fast. So product design in our company typically started with a brainstorming and sketching session inside a meeting room. But then we said, like, get out of the building. We need to immediately find real-world feedback. Now, being a big business like ours, we have the advantage that our customers are everywhere, and we would literally get onto the street here in the center of Amsterdam, you see a photo, interviewing people for a couple of minutes just to get first feedback on our ideas before we get back into a meeting room. The next step would be that we make a prototype of the product. Here you see an example of one of our projects done in PowerPoint, and there are much better tools to do this, but product managers can make a pitch to the management in PowerPoint, so if they can do that, they can make a prototype as well. This is a fully clickable interactive prototype that the user can click through and get a real user experience, but it costs only an afternoon to build because there's no real code behind it. It's just a mock-up. Then we would invite a couple of our customers on a Friday afternoon to the office, and we would actually let them use this prototype. And we will record them while they are using it and interviewing them afterwards. With just 5 people, we gain a lot of insights about whether the product is clear and appealing to people, whether the price point is right, and we can iterate on it really quickly, even between 2 meetings, because changing something on this slide takes 5 minutes of time, while changing the product would take us a month of work. And so by the time that we have tested this with the users and the experience is smooth, we can then pass it on to the software development department that now has very detailed requirements what needs to be built and can ship it quickly, and the launch will be a success. So we are now replicating this same track at Vendora. We are live for 8 months. We have just last week secured our first round of investment.
Yeah, but it's not a prototype, right?
This is not
It's
a
not on a
prototype anymore.
PowerPoint.
We have 26,000 products on the website already and 200,000 visitors a month. As of now, actually, we are starting to hire a team here in Athens as well. So if you're interested or know people who are interested in learning more about this lean startup methodology, we're looking for all different roles, from marketing to software development to customer support. So please drop us an email. And thank you for your time.